I've never met my real mother before and don't know anything about my birth family, but I'd like to think she'd be proud of me for all I've been able to accomplish this far. I was never formally adopted. I aged out of the foster care system a few years ago, and because of my high grades and SAT scores, I was awarded a big scholarship. I'm currently a junior at a small college, and I'm studying psychology so that I can help kids cope with some of the things I had to endure. I've always had a big passion for mental health. A few weeks back, though, I started to question my own sanity. Now I'm pretty scared I am sane, because I know what is happening is real, and I don't have any clue what to expect. At the beginning of January, I started to notice the girl on the blue bicycle. I live on a fairly tiny, private campus, and while I don't know everyone at my college, I was positive I'd never seen this girl before. Even though the weather is frigid in winter, not many girls around here bundle their entire faces up. This girl looked like she was ready for Siberia. Another thing that stood out to me was her bicycle. It was incredibly banged up, with the blue paint chipping all over. Each time she was around, she would stay about 100 paces away and just stare. If I looked at her for too long, she'd race off in that creaky bicycle, bits of blue paint spraying into the air. At first, I only saw her in common areas, and while her gaze seemed to be impenetrable, I figured she may just be new to the school and lonely. Having moved from family to family and from school to school as a kid, I knew how it felt to be the outsider looking in. Besides, what harm could really come to me with 30 or 40 other students in the area? Then, while in my second-story dorm room, I looked out the window to see if the frost was bad enough to warrant my galoshes. The girl, wrapped tight as a mummy in her scarves and hat, was sitting at the picnic table in the courtyard of my dorm. With one hand, she propped up her blue bicycle. The other hand gripped a small pair of binoculars which were pointed straight at my window. Straight at me. I ran to the bottom floor of the dorm and banged on the door of my friend and classmate, Laura Beth. She's a psych major too, and we have almost every class together this semester. I told her what was going on and assumed she had seen the girl on the blue bicycle at least once or twice around campus. We peered out of her window, which had a much clearer view of the picnic tables. They were empty. Not to be mean, but are you sure you're feeling okay? Your skin is completely pale and you're shiny. Are you sweating? Laura Beth looked at me as though I were incensed. It's below freezing outside. There's no reason you should be sweating. Not sweating like that. Laura Beth helped me back up the stairs to my room. Part of me felt like I must be losing my mind. All of me felt afraid. My legs were jiggly and my heart was racing. I stumbled as I walked. Look, I know you're Little Miss A student and everything, but I think you ought to get some rest. The flu is going around, I heard. But Dr. Robinson said we'd be learning about the MBTI today. It's my favorite. And you can copy my notes after class. Laura Beth's tone was insistent. Fine, but will you at least turn in the stats homework for me? Sure thing. Laura Beth smiled in an almost maternal way and grabbed the labeled statistics notebook off of my desk. I'm going to check on you directly after class, and if you're still looking like that, you're going to the infirmary. I stuck my tongue out at Laura Beth as she left my dorm. Her forceful efforts to mother hen me felt warm and foreign at the same time. I guess I wasn't used to someone taking care of me. I paced back and forth in front of my window, and I waited for a glimpse of the girl on the blue bicycle. After half an hour, the anxiety was more than I could take. I grabbed my backpack and ran outside. The air was cold, and my quickened breath created a small fog around my face. I looked to and fro, but there was no sign of her. Far off in the distance, I could see students scurrying between the classroom buildings. In the courtyard of the dorms, it was peaceful in a way that was unsettling. The air was so thin. The fast breathing left me feeling dizzy. I sat down on the bench of the picnic table. I wondered if I were losing my mind. I knew enough about psychopathology to understand that disorders like schizophrenia cause strong hallucinations and delusions. I also knew that schizophrenia is believed to have a genetic component, and I never knew my mother. What could I have inherited? Then I saw them, littering the ground like colored snowflakes. I reached down to pick one up, to understand its reality. The frosty grass around me was covered in blue paint chips. The sound of my backpack tumbling to the ground brought me back to reality. I knew I had to get somewhere more populated. If the girl were to come after me here, there wouldn't be anyone around to help. I sped off in the direction of the school library. Growing up and never having a stable home gave me a particular respect for the library. No matter where I ever lived, the smell of old books in a library was always a constant. I bolted into that library, like a sinner finally reaching a sanctuary. I needed its comfort to calm the terror I felt inside. I immediately made my way to the psychology section and picked out a few books on neuroscience and schizophrenia. Although I knew the paint chips had been real, I needed to know more about the diagnostic markers of psychosis, just to be on the safe side. I carried the books to the checkout counter and attempted to pat the sweat from my face as the girl at the counter inventoried the books. She appeared annoyed, which was strange, since she was usually smiling and friendly. "I get it that you really love psych, but I can't authorize you to take these. You've already reached your lending limit." "How? I'm an honors student." "And you can check out 10 just like any other honors student." Her tone made it clear that she wasn't amused. "Exactly, I get to have 10, and these 3 books will put me at 6. Shouldn't an honors student be able to do math?" "Listen, I don't know what you're... These 3 books will put you at 13. I was here last night when you checked out 7 books on psych. You may be an honors student, but no one needs that many books on craziness. It's just crazy in itself." "But last night I was at a psych society meeting." "And then you were here." "Trust me, I don't forget a person who forgets their ID to borrow the books, begs me to check them out anyways, and proceeds to sit in the library until closing, wearing 500 scarves around their head. It's like you're afraid your honor student brain will explode. Now, if you don't mind, there's a line forming behind you. Unless you're turning 3 books in, I can't let you have these." The girl swatted the psych books into a bin next to her desk and motioned for me to move aside. That's when I started to run. I didn't let myself stop to think until I could sit on my dorm's bed. I was close to collapsing. I wiped the beads of sweat from my forehead as the late afternoon light striped through the blinds of my window. Where was she? Who was she? Was she a person at all? Thoughts raced through my mind. I remembered how the blue paint chips broke apart and speckled my hand. I opened my notebook and gazed at the Psych Society meeting notes from the previous meeting. We didn't get out until 9:40 because the pizza delivery guy ran late. The library closed at 9:30 p.m. I couldn't have been at the library, and didn't I wear a turtleneck yesterday? I don't wear scarves with turtlenecks. I looked at the clock. Laura Beth should have called by now. I dialed the 4-digit short code to her dorm room. "Hello?" "Hey, it's me. You didn't call, so I was just..." She cut me off mid-sentence. "Why would I have called? You can't just act like you did and expect me to be the one to call you and apologize." "Act like what?" "You go to class anyways, and then you sit in the back and ignore me. I just don't understand you lately." "But I didn't." "Don't act like you didn't see me. You looked straight at me the entire period. It was just rude of you." She slammed down the phone. I tried to call back, but there was no answer. I decided I would go down to her room and see what I could find out. As I gripped the door handle, I heard a knock. It seemed like Laura Beth had also decided to hash this out in person. Beads of sweat trickled down my face, and I opened the door. Scarves, hat. 2 eyes glanced out at me between layers of fabric. It was the girl who rode the blue bicycle. She walked casually into the room and shut the door behind her with a soft click. I stood motionless, unable to move, unable to scream. "It's okay, don't worry." The voice was muffled under the bizarre scarves that enveloped her mouth. Slowly, delicately, she unwrapped herself. Long auburn hair fell from beneath her hat. Her eyes were the bright blue of her bicycle, almost icy. Her lips were small and curved into a sly grin. She looked completely normal. She looked completely like me. "I'm hallucinating. This isn't real." She followed with a metallic giggle. "No, you're not hallucinating. I've learned enough about psychology to know what hallucinating means." "Then what?" "You are not hallucinating, but you are a twin." I sucked in air so hard when I gasped that I saw tiny, moth-like dots in my vision. "I'm guessing you never did a record search when you turned 18. I did. That's how I found out about you, and I've been looking for you ever since." Her smile widened, and I saw her teeth, with jagged canines just like my own. The fear started to melt away with the realization that I had a family, a sister, an identical twin. My mind and body swam with confusion and excitement. She reached out and held me as I stumbled to the desk chair. It was as though my own mirror were touching me. She was my carbon copy, even to the cut of her hair. "I've waited so long for this moment." Her eyes swelled with tears. "Was it you at the library? And in Mr. Robinson's class?" She nodded. "I feel bad for not speaking to your friend. I was nervous. But I suppose I'll have plenty of time to catch up with her." "Are you going to college here too?" "You could say that." "But why my library account and the class?" "To get a head start." Her eyes narrowed, and the grin fell from her face. "For next semester?" "For being you." Blue paint chips bespeckled the hand that held the knife.